If you have perennials growing in containers on your patio, porch, balcony, or around the front door, September is the month when you need to start paying attention. Because a plant that can survive winter perfectly well in the ground may not survive winter in a pot. That is the mistake I want to help you avoid today. The roots of a plant sitting above ground are surrounded by a much smaller volume of soil, and that soil can lose heat much faster than the earth around an in-ground plant. A sudden freeze can turn a beautiful container perennial into a dead root ball before you even realize there is a problem. And the frustrating part is that many of these plants are not supposed to be thrown away at the end of the season. They are perennials. You bought them once, you grew them, you watched them fill out, and with the right September preparation, you may be able to enjoy them again next year instead of buying replacements all over again. So today, I am going to show you 8 container perennials that deserve special attention as September arrives. Exactly what to do with each one, where to store them, when to cut them back, and how to avoid the biggest winter mistakes. But before we get started today, I have to share a story about a subscriber who emailed me a while back. She bought an expensive gardening book and took it out to the yard, and within minutes, water splashed, mud got everywhere, and the pages were completely stained and ruined. She was devastated because she had to spend money all over again just to replace it. That is why the Plant Once Garden is officially live as a digital guide. With this soft copy, you are completely protected. You can open it right on your phone at the nursery, or print out just a single slice of the book to take outside with you. If that single page gets filthy in the garden or you lose it, it doesn't matter at all. Your master copy stays permanently safe, and you can just print another fresh page. It is approximately 150 pages of everything this channel teaches. 90 perennial plants, 6 complete garden plans, the no-labor planting calendar, and the hydrogen peroxide method, designed with a hand-drawn heritage cover and warm cream pages that look and feel like a guide your grandmother would have owned. You can scan the QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the pinned comment or description below to get your copy today. Now, let's jump right back into today's lesson. Number 1 is the plant almost everyone recognizes, hostas. Hostas are one of the easiest perennials to grow, and they are especially common in containers because they tolerate shade and bring huge, attractive foliage to patios and porches. But here is the important distinction. A hosta planted directly in the ground may be extremely cold-hardy, while that same hosta sitting in a pot can be much more vulnerable. The ground provides insulation. The deeper soil surrounding an in-ground root system changes temperature slowly. A container has much less soil around the roots, and cold air can surround the entire pot. That means the roots can experience repeated freeze-thaw cycles. The soil freezes, it warms, it freezes again. And that repeated movement can damage delicate roots and the crown. So what should you do in September? Do not rush to cut your hosta the moment the first leaf turns yellow. Let the foliage naturally decline. As September progresses, the leaves will yellow, then brown, and eventually collapse. Allowing that process to happen gives the plant time to move stored energy back toward the crown and roots before dormancy. Once the foliage is completely dead and collapsed, cut it down close to the soil, leaving roughly an inch above the surface. Then move the entire container into an unheated garage, shed, or similarly protected space where the plant can remain dormant without being exposed to severe freezes. You do not need to put it in your warm living room. In fact, you do not want to wake it up. Hostas need dormancy. The goal is simply to protect the root system from becoming a frozen block. And there is another mistake people make with dormant hostas. They keep watering them as though they are still growing. Don't. Give the container a thorough watering when you first move it into storage if the soil is dry. After that, check it only occasionally. Once a month is often enough during deep dormancy. The soil should be barely damp, similar to a wrung-out sponge, not bone-dry, not soaked, and definitely not sitting in water. That same principle becomes even more important with the next plant, because millions of gardeners buy it every September. Number 2. Chrysanthemums. Garden mums are one of the classic signs that fall has arrived. They appear everywhere. Garden centers, supermarkets, farm stands, porches, and front steps, and many people treat them like disposable seasonal decorations. The flowers fade, the plant looks tired, and into the trash it goes. But garden chrysanthemums are perennials. If you bought a true garden mum rather than a florist-type mum intended primarily for indoor display, you can often overwinter it and bring it back for another season. That means the money you spent this year does not necessarily have to be spent again next year. The key is protecting the container from an early hard freeze. Enjoy the flowers outside while the weather is still comfortable. But as the blooms fade and temperatures begin approaching the mid-30s to around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, start preparing the pot for storage. Once the flowering period is finished, prune the stems back by roughly half. Then move the container into an unheated garage, cold frame, or cool basement where it can remain dormant. You do not need to keep it under bright grow lights while it is sleeping. Low light or darkness is acceptable during dormancy, provided the storage area stays cool and frost-free. The biggest mistake here is putting a dormant mum in a warm room and treating it like a houseplant. That encourages weak growth at exactly the wrong time. Keep it cool. Keep it protected. Keep the soil from becoming waterlogged. Then, when spring arrives and new green shoots begin emerging from the base, gradually increase watering and move the plant toward brighter conditions. That is when you know the plant is waking up. And think about what you just saved. Instead of buying another full container of mums next fall, you may already have a mature plant ready to grow again. Number 3 is Clematis. Clematis is one of the most beautiful ways to garden vertically in a small space. A single container can support a climbing display beside a porch, along a railing, or against a small trellis. But container-grown clematis has one major weakness. The root system is exposed to winter temperatures from every direction. And there is another problem many gardeners never think about. The container itself can be damaged. Ceramic, terracotta, and glazed pots can absorb moisture. When that moisture freezes and expands, the container can crack. So in September, you want to prepare both the plant and the pot. Start by dealing with the vines. If long stems are tangled through a trellis, carefully disconnect them while they are still manageable. Depending on the clematis type and its pruning needs, you can trim back excessive growth so the container becomes easier to move and store. If you are simply preparing a portable container for winter protection, keeping long growth under control and avoiding damage to the main stems is the priority. Do not drag a giant tangled vine through a doorway. You can damage the plant and the trellis at the same time. Next, inspect the plant for pests. Look closely around leaf joints, stems, and the underside of foliage. You do not want to move insects into your garage or basement along with the plant. Then move the pot into a frost-free location. Clematis does not need to sit in a warm house. A cool storage area is much better for dormancy, with temperatures roughly in the 35 to 45 degree Fahrenheit range being appropriate for many overwintering situations. The important thing is to protect the root ball from hard freezing while avoiding warm, wet conditions. And remember this phrase, roots cold, crown dry. The root zone can remain cool, but the soil should never stay soggy. Check the top couple of inches of soil occasionally. If it is still moist, do nothing. If it has become genuinely dry, water lightly. You are maintaining the plant, not pushing it into active growth. Number 4 is rosemary. And if you love cooking with fresh herbs, this may be one of the most valuable plants on today's list. Rosemary can become a substantial perennial herb in the right climate, but a rosemary plant sitting in a container is vulnerable to freezing because the roots have far less protection than they would have in the ground. This is one plant where you generally should not wait for a hard freeze. Start transitioning it indoors in September, as outdoor temperatures begin dropping consistently. But rosemary has a completely different winter strategy from a dormant hosta. Rosemary needs light. A bright sunny window is ideal. A south-facing window is usually your best option, especially during the shorter days of autumn and winter. Aim for roughly 6 to 8 hours of strong light when possible. If your home does not provide enough sunlight, an LED grow light can help maintain healthy growth. And now comes the watering trap. People bring rosemary indoors, and immediately water it every few days. That is exactly how they lose it. Indoor conditions are completely different from outdoor conditions. There is less sun, there is less wind, evaporation is slower, and the pot can remain wet for a surprisingly long time. Use the touch test. Wait until the upper inch or so of soil is dry before watering. When the plant does need water, water thoroughly enough for some drainage to come from the bottom. Then empty the saucer. Never leave rosemary sitting in standing water. Rosemary also benefits from good airflow. If the air around the plant is stagnant, especially in a warm room, fungal problems can become more likely. You can place a small fan nearby on a low setting, but do not blast the plant with a strong stream of air. Gentle circulation is enough. And keep rosemary away from heating vents and radiators. The hot, dry air coming directly from a vent can stress the foliage while the soil remains wet below. You want cool, bright, well-drained conditions. You know, every time I'm out working in the yard, I'm reminded of why we designed the Plant Once garden as a soft copy. A physical book out in the dirt is just waiting to get ruined by mud or water. With this 150-page digital guide, you can open it right on your phone at the nursery, or print just a single page for the yard without ever risking your master copy. If you're ready to transform your yard into a low-maintenance paradise, scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the pinned comment below. Now, let's get straight back to where we left off. Number 5 is Fuchsia. If you have ever grown a fuchsia in a hanging basket, you already know why gardeners hate losing these plants. They can produce an extraordinary display of flowers. But in many colder regions, the container cannot simply be left outside all winter. One of the easiest approaches is dormancy. In late September, as the plant finishes its outdoor season, cut the leafy flowering stems back to around 4 inches above the rim or appropriate woody framework. Remove remaining leaves and inspect carefully for insects. This is important because a leafless plant is much easier to inspect and much less attractive to pests during storage. Then move the container into a cool, dark location. An attached garage, cool basement, or dark storage room can work if temperatures remain roughly around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit and the space does not freeze. You are not trying to make the fuchsia grow. You are trying to let it rest. Water sparingly. The plant uses very little moisture while dormant, and constantly wet soil can lead to root problems. Then comes the exciting part. In late February or March, depending on your climate, move the plant toward brighter light. Begin increasing watering gradually. Within weeks, you may see new green shoots emerging from old wood that looked completely lifeless. That is the signal that your stored plant is waking up. And this is why September preparation matters. What looks like a dead, cut-back pot in December may become a flowering basket again by late spring. Number 6 is Canna Lily. Cannas are another plant people often buy year after year without realizing how easy it can be to preserve the plant they already own. If your canna is growing in a container, you have an especially convenient option. You do not necessarily have to dig the rhizomes out of the soil, wash them, dry them, wrap them, label them, and store them separately. You can use what I like to call the lazy pot method. Leave the rhizomes right where they are. As September progresses and nighttime temperatures begin falling, watch the foliage. After the first chilly nights, especially when temperatures are approaching the mid-40s Fahrenheit, cut the tall stems down to roughly 2 or 3 inches above the soil. Remove the dead foliage. Then move the entire container into a dark, frost-free storage area. A cool garage, basement, or similar space can work. The storage area should stay above freezing and ideally remain around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And here is the part that surprises people. Do not keep watering the canna all winter. Once the plant is dormant, excess moisture around the rhizomes creates a perfect environment for rot. The soil should remain dry, or nearly dry, during storage. You are basically putting the entire pot to sleep. Do not place it next to a furnace. Do not put it in a warm living room. Do not keep pouring water into the pot because the soil looks dry. Dry is exactly what you want for dormant canna rhizomes. Then, as winter ends and spring approaches, you can gradually move the pot into warmer, brighter conditions. When new shoots begin appearing, that is your signal that the rhizomes are waking up. At that point, resume watering carefully and begin preparing the plant for the outdoor growing season. Think about the savings. Canna rhizomes can be expensive when you are buying multiple containers every year. Keeping them alive in the pot means you are preserving the investment you already made. Number 7 is lavender. Lavender is famous for loving sunshine and tolerating dry conditions. So why would a gardener bring lavender indoors? Because container lavender has a special problem: cold, wet roots. The plant may tolerate chilly air very well, but a container that stays saturated through cold autumn weather can become a serious problem. This is why September is about timing. You do not want to wait until the pot has been sitting outside through repeated cold rains. Move the container into a bright, cool, protected space before prolonged wet weather becomes established. A bright, unheated sunroom can be excellent. A cool, bright garage may work if it receives enough light. Temperatures around 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit can be suitable for many lavender plants during cool season protection, provided the plant receives adequate light and the roots stay well drained. And please do not put lavender next to a radiator. The plant may love sun, but it does not love being baked by indoor heating. The goal is bright light, cool air, and dry roots. This is also why your potting mix matters. Lavender hates sitting in dense, water-holding soil. If your container drains slowly, winter is not the time to discover the problem. Make sure excess water can escape freely through the drainage holes. Some gardeners also use a light top dressing of coarse sand or fine gravel to help keep the crown area dry and improve the surface environment. But do not mistake that for a substitute for drainage. The drainage holes are still essential, and be very careful with watering. Lavender is not a plant you should water simply because it has been 7 days. Touch the soil. If the upper layer is still moist, wait. If the plant is cool and the soil is damp, wait longer. The combination of low light, low evaporation, and wet roots is much more dangerous than a slightly thirsty lavender plant. And finally, number 8 is Pelargonium, including many scented geraniums. These plants are sentimental favorites for many gardeners. They are often passed from one season to another, and some gardeners have kept the same treasured plant going for years. But once the days shorten and nights cool down, container pelargoniums need a transition plan. Before bringing the plant indoors, prune back long, weak, or leggy stems by roughly 30 to 50%. Make your cuts just above healthy leaf nodes. This helps keep the plant compact and encourages stronger branching when new growth resumes. And do not throw away every cutting. Healthy 4-inch stem tips can potentially be rooted to create additional plants. That means one pruning session can become a propagation opportunity. Once the plant is indoors, place it near a bright window. Pelargoniums are not like dormant hostas. They need light if you expect them to remain actively growing. A south-facing window is ideal, and supplemental LED lighting can help if natural light is weak. Then comes another important rule. Stop fertilizing in September. Do not keep feeding the plant through the darkest part of the year simply because you want more growth. Short days and indoor conditions can produce weak, pale, stretched growth. Instead, allow the plant to slow down. Reduce feeding from September through the winter period, and plan to resume fertilization when spring growth becomes strong again. Before we finish, there is one more preparation step that can make the difference between a clean indoor transition and an indoor pest problem. Think about the first 48 hours after you move a container inside. That is your inspection window. Do not park the plant beside your other houseplants and forget about it. Keep newly moved containers separated when possible. Give yourself time to inspect the leaves, stems, soil surface, and drainage holes. Look for tiny flies rising from the soil. Look for webbing between leaves. Look for sticky residue, clusters of insects, distorted new growth, or small bumps along stems. Those are warning signs. If you find a problem, deal with it before the plant joins the rest of your indoor collection. You can wash foliage with a gentle stream of water and use insecticidal soap or another labeled treatment when appropriate. Always follow the product label, especially when treating edible herbs such as rosemary. For soil pests such as fungus gnats, Reducing unnecessary moisture is often one of the most important steps. Allow the appropriate soil surface to dry between waterings. Use yellow sticky traps to monitor adults, and avoid keeping saucers full of water. This is also where the hydrogen peroxide method, sometimes discussed on this channel, can fit into a broader pest management routine. A diluted solution may help reduce fungus gnat larvae in the soil, but it should never replace proper watering, drainage, inspection, or an appropriate labeled pest treatment. And remember that the goal is not to sterilize every pot. The goal is to avoid carrying an obvious pest problem into your home. There is also a light transition rule that deserves attention. A plant that has spent all summer outside in full sun may suddenly receive only a fraction of that light through a household window. So do not panic if a few leaves yellow or drop during the first couple of weeks. Some plants experience acclimation shock when the environment changes. Outdoor wind disappears, humidity changes, temperature changes, light intensity drops, even the direction of light changes. A small amount of leaf loss can be part of that adjustment. What you should not ignore is continued decline caused by saturated soil, severe pest pressure, extreme heat, or insufficient light for an actively growing plant. In other words, do not confuse normal transition with a problem that needs fixing. Give the plant time to adjust, but keep watching it. And one final preparation habit: label your containers. It sounds simple, but once several plants are cut back and dormant, they can look surprisingly similar. A small weatherproof plant tag can tell you the name, the date you moved it inside, and any special instructions. That little bit of organization can save you a lot of guessing when spring arrives. Rule number 1 is the 1-2-3 watering method. Overwatering is one of the biggest reasons outdoor container plants fail after they are brought indoors. Outside, sunlight, wind, and warmer temperatures can remove moisture quickly. Inside, evaporation slows down, so never water by the calendar. Water by the condition of the plant and soil. First, use the lift test. Lift or tilt the container. If it still feels heavy, do not water just because the surface looks dry. Second, use the finger test. Push your finger about 2 inches into the soil. If you feel moisture or the soil feels cool and damp, wait. Give it several more days and check again. Third, check the saucer. After watering, allow excess water to drain, then empty the tray. Never allow the pot to sit in standing water. A plant can be watered correctly and still be damaged if its roots remain submerged afterward. Rule number 2 is air circulation versus heating vents. Never put your overwintering containers directly beside a radiator, fireplace, or forced air heating vent. Try to keep plants several feet away from those heat sources. Warm air blasting across leaves can cause dehydration and stress, while the root zone remains too wet. For plants stored in garages, pay attention to the floor as well. A cold concrete floor can pull heat away from the bottom of a container. Place the pot on cardboard, a wooden plank, or pot feet to create a little separation. For evergreen plants such as rosemary and lavender, gentle air circulation can make a big difference. A small fan on low for an hour or 2 a day can help prevent stagnant air. Do not create a wind tunnel. You simply want gentle movement. Rule number 3 is sunlight. This is where many gardeners get confused. Not every plant you bring inside needs sunlight. Dormant plants such as hostas, cannas, and properly overwintered fuchsias can remain in cool, dark storage while they sleep. But active plants such as rosemary and pelargoniums need strong light. Do not assume that moving a plant 3 feet away from a bright window gives it the same light it had outdoors. It does not. Indoor light levels can be dramatically lower. If you are keeping a plant actively growing, use the brightest suitable window you have. You can also supplement natural light with an LED grow light. And rotate active plants about 180 degrees every couple of weeks. That keeps one side from stretching dramatically toward the window. Rule number 4 is pest control. The biggest indoor pest mistake is thinking that a plant is clean because you cannot immediately see insects. Spider mites, scale, and fungus gnats can appear later. Before bringing plants inside, inspect leaves, stems, and soil carefully. You can rinse foliage and use insecticidal soap or another appropriate product according to its label. For fungus gnats, yellow sticky traps placed near the soil surface can catch adults before the problem spreads. And if you use the diluted hydrogen peroxide soil method discussed on this channel, remember that the goal is pest management, not soaking the plant unnecessarily. A commonly used dilution is 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 4 parts water. Apply it only when appropriate for the plant and situation, and avoid treating stressed plants indiscriminately. Then continue inspecting your plants weekly. Look underneath leaves, check stem joints, look at the soil surface. A 30-second inspection can prevent a month of fighting an indoor infestation. Rule number 5 is humidity. Winter heating can make indoor air extremely dry. Plants that prefer higher humidity may show stress through leaf drop, browning, or poor growth. One simple option is grouping plants together. Instead of scattering every container around the house, group compatible plants in one area. As they naturally release moisture, they can create a slightly more humid microenvironment. Another option is a pebble tray. Place gravel in a tray, add water below the top of the stones, and set the pot on the stones so the bottom of the container stays above the water line. The goal is evaporation around the plant, not a pot sitting in water. And remember, not every plant needs high humidity. Good airflow and correct watering are still more important than trying to turn your house into a greenhouse. Rule number 6 is the spring wake-up calendar. This rule prevents you from undoing everything you accomplished during winter. Do not take your plants back outside just because you get one unusually warm day in early spring. A 60-degree afternoon does not mean winter is finished. Wait until the danger of hard frost has passed for your region. Then harden the plants off. Start by placing them outdoors in a sheltered, shaded location for a few hours. Bring them back inside. Repeat the process over several days. Gradually increase the amount of outdoor time, and then gradually introduce stronger sunlight. Give them roughly 7 to 10 days to adjust whenever practical. This protects leaves that have adapted to indoor conditions from being suddenly exposed to intense outdoor sun and wind. And there is one final rule that ties everything together. Do not feed dormant plants. Fall and winter are periods of rest for many of these perennials. Fertilizer is not a magic winter survival tool. If a plant is dormant in a cold garage, feeding it can encourage growth that the plant cannot properly support. It can also contribute to salt buildup in the container. Wait for active spring growth before returning to a normal feeding schedule. Now, before you bring anything inside, remember the simple sequence. Inspect it, clean it, treat pests if necessary, prune it according to the plant, move it before the hard freeze. Then match the storage conditions to the plant. Dormant plants need cool protection and very little water. Active plants need light, airflow, and carefully controlled moisture. That distinction will save you from one of the most common overwintering mistakes, treating every perennial exactly the same. And remember the 8 plants we covered today: Hostas, Chrysanthemums, Clematis, Rosemary, Fuchsia, Canna Lilies, Lavender, and Pelargoniums. You do not need to run outside and move every container into your living room today. You simply need to start preparing. Watch the nighttime temperatures. Watch the weather. Watch the plant. September is your preparation month. It gives you time to move valuable containers before a surprise freeze turns a healthy root system into a casualty. And if you are already spending money on beautiful perennial plants, why throw that investment away every year when some of them can be protected and grown again? And that is the real lesson here. September is not the end of your container garden. It is the transition point. The plants may be slowing down, the flowers may be fading, and the days may be getting shorter. But this is exactly when a little preparation can determine whether you start from scratch next spring or simply wake up the plants you already own. So walk around your patio this week. Look at every container. Ask yourself one question. If the temperature suddenly drops below freezing tonight, which of these plants would have its roots exposed to the cold? Those are the containers that deserve your attention first. Move them at the right time. Give dormant plants a cool place to rest. Give active plants the light they need. Keep the soil from staying soaked, keep pests out, and do not rush the spring transition. Do those things, and you will give your container perennials a much better chance of coming through winter, ready for another season. Nobody wants to pay twice for an expensive book after it gets ruined by mud or water out in the yard. That's why the Plant Once Garden is designed as a soft copy, giving you total protection, lifetime access, and a resource you can easily share with your family or print as needed. It's simply the most practical way to secure these blueprints forever. Just scan the QR code on your screen right now, or click the link in the description below to get your copy today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.